Let's get into Arsenal then, shall we?
Brilliant.
What did you
Move on?
What did you think of it, Darren?
Yeah, it was poor. I mean, of course, he heard Jamie yesterday. And listen, he's totally right. I mean, it helps, obviously, that Spurs put in the performance that they did. So he's buzzing. He's on cloud.
He pipes up, doesn't
he's
he?
cloud 9. But listen, he's right in some of the stuff that he was saying there. I mean, listen, Arteta, he is struggling. The players aren't playing for him. But I think a lot of the blame goes upstairs as well. I think Edu's got a lot to answer for as well in terms of recruitment. I think he's to blame for a lot of the decisions as well. And I think it's a mess at the very, very top, and it just filters down. Of course, Arteta at times has shown that he is capable of managing the club and getting them over the line. But when you've got the players that are not playing for you anymore, your time's limited, because going into the first game of the season, no Lacazette, no Aubameyang, and he just says they're ill, and it's kind of like move on. Obviously, there's an issue there. Even some of the decisions they made in terms of giving Granit Xhaka a new contract. Like, listen, I was one of them saying when he threw his shirt down, he stormed off. That's it. He should never play for the club again. Then fair play to him. He worked his way back, and then got himself in the team. But I think when you've got a chance to kind of clear out the kind of deadwood, yes, he had a good Euros, but you've got to move on. You've got Joe Willock, for instance, and that's one of the decisions that really frustrates me, is because you've got Joe Willock there, who ended the season for Newcastle absolutely brilliantly. Now, yeah, he might not be your starter, but you get him in and around the squad. I think he'd done enough last season, certainly the back end of last season, to carry that confidence into this season. And you let him go to Newcastle, and you keep people like El Nene, you give Xhaka a new contract. These decisions just don't make sense.
These rebuilds take a lot of time, Ali, and I feel like we've been saying that Arsenal need a rebuild for maybe 3 or 4 seasons, probably even a bit longer than that. What was the year when we finished second? 2015 was it, when Leicester won the league? Yeah. It's just been going from bad to worse, really, and those signings, we've made a few good signings for sure, and there were lots of players that were missing in that game against Brentford too, but the attitude absolutely stinks. I think that's a big problem.
It's a massive problem with recruitment as well, because the longer it takes you to come back, the more unattractive your club becomes to top signings. And that's kind of where Arsenal are at this moment in time. I mean, years ago when they were flying under Wenger, that's where the top players in the European world wanted to go. Obviously United and Arsenal, but the further down the pecking order you become, the more difficult it is. For example, just to throw a name, Haaland, for example, he's been touted about, going to whether it's Manchester United or Man City or Real Madrid. 5, 6, 7 years ago, Arsenal would have been in the equation.
Yeah.
Now it's just a completely different ballgame. So therefore the rebuild, you maybe have to go with younger players, which effectively takes more time.
He was right to pick out, and I hate to say Jamie Harmer was right, but he was right to single out Kieran Tierney and Emile Smith-Rowe.
I don't even put Saka in that, because he came on, he gave everything when he came on.
He did, absolutely. Those 3 players are Arsenal's shining lights at the moment, and were last season as well.
Correct.
I genuinely feel right now Arsenal have been trading off their history and being a London club for a long time now, because that is the kind of joy of the shirt, isn't it? Arsenal, they've got all that history. Well, when was the last time? Yeah, we won an FA Cup season before last.
I'm hanging on to that for dear life. Every argument I have to throw that out there.
Everybody is, isn't it? Even the FA Cup has lost part of its shine. The younger generation, it's not what it was. It doesn't get the views that it used to, and it's not the only thing on telly anymore. There's so much more, so many more competitions. I just feel like you can only trade off your history for so long.
You can, and it is about moving forward. And you're going to have to let players go. But you had an opportunity there in terms of, like, for instance, Reece Nelson. I like seeing youngsters come through and be given an opportunity, but he's yet to kind of take his chance and really step up. Whereas in the Premier League, Joe Willock last season, I know at times at Newcastle he struggled, but certainly the way he ended the season, he kind of found his feet. He was brilliant. So you might as well bring him back and have him there. You let Xhaka go. You know that you've still got people like El Nene there. Do you know what I mean? These players have got to move. If you're going to get better, these players have got to move on.
The El Nene one was interesting, actually, because El Nene and Mikel Arteta actually played for the same Arsenal side, which feels weird when you say that, because you think, God, they should be generations apart, but they weren't. And El Nene was out on loan, wasn't he? And actually Mikel Arteta brought him back into the fold because he really liked his attitude, and he really thought he could be something good, I think, for around the training ground. And he's had a few games here and there and that sort of stuff. And obviously, you're right, he's not good enough to take Arsenal to the next level, and there's a few players in there that are like that. But how important is it for attitude in a side? Because we aren't privy to what happens at that club and those conversations behind closed doors. But for a while now, it's felt like the harmony at Arsenal is off.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great at all. And I understand what you're saying in terms of having someone like El Nene who probably toes the line, professional, but that doesn't seem to be working. Regardless whether you've got a group of players that are professional, doing everything right, trying to help the club, unfortunately, it looks like the most influential players aren't. I mean, Saka, of course, he is professional, he's doing what he's doing. Smith Rowe has been a revelation. Tierney, every time he puts that shirt on, is up and down. But you have to question. I mean, and even I felt so sorry for him, Ben White, because if you take Ben White out of Arsenal's team and you put him in Manchester City, Chelsea, I bet he looks like the £50 million player in terms of they will dominate possession. He's a great footballer. But when you put him in the back four, like for Brighton, he played really well in the back three.
Exactly.
That's where he was at his best,
and
that's why we bought him. But when you go and put him in a back four, it just everything about the team selection, the shape, the tactics just didn't fit. And in the end, ultimately, him and Pablo Mari, they just got beat up. That's as simple as that. Ivan Toney and Brahim Bremo absolutely beat them up.
And actually, Pablo Mari, I mean, you won't single him out as much because it's Ben that's got that price tag now, and he will suffer for that price tag actually, because a lot of people will single him out and say, look, 50 million, where are we seeing it? Are we not seeing it yet? But I think you've got to give him a bit of time as well, because you're right, moving from a back three to a back four is different, right?
And especially into a team that can't defend.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
More importantly.
Do you know what I mean?
But that's why they bought him, right? Improve it.
One person, you take a player that plays in a back three and you put him in a back four in a team that can't defend, and what are you expecting?
You've got Callum Chambers at right back. He's not necessarily a right back or not.
Oh my God, I even forgot about that decision, because that decision is shocking. But just quickly, you look at someone like Thomas Tuchel, what he did at Chelsea. Under Frank, they were struggling a little bit defensively. He came in, played that back three. Look at them now, how defensively solid they are. Christensen was getting absolutely slaughtered by Chelsea fans. They absolutely hated him. Look at him now. He looks unbelievable.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods. Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.